Hello, and welcome to People of the Pod, brought to you by American Jewish Committee. Each week, we take you beyond the headlines to help you understand what they all mean for America, Israel, and the Jewish people. I'm your host, Manya Brashear-Pashman. As American Jewish college students head back to their campuses this fall, it's hard to know what to expect. Since the Hamas terror attacks of October 7th, maintaining a GPA has been the least of their worries. For some who attend universities that allowed anti-Israel protesters to vandalize hostage signs or set up encampments, fears still linger. We wanted to hear from college students how they're feeling about this school year. But instead of limiting ourselves to American campuses, we asked 3 students from AJC's Campus Global Board, from America, Argentina, and Australia. That's right, we still aim for straight A's here. We asked them to share their experiences so far and what they anticipate this year. We'll start on the other side of the world, in Australia. With us now is Jonathan Iadarola, a third-year student at the University of Adelaide in Adelaide, Australia, the land down under, where everything is flipped and they're getting ready to wrap up their school year in November. Jonathan serves as president of the South Australia branch of the Australian Union of Jewish Students and on AJC's Campus Global Board. Jonathan, welcome to People of the Pod.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us what your experience has been as a Jewish college student in Australia, both before October 7th and after.
So at my university, we have a student magazine, and there was a really awful article in the magazine that a student editor wrote, very critical of Israel, obviously not very nice words, and it sort of ended with death to Israel, glory to the Intifada, inshallah it will be merciless. So it was very, very traumatic. Obviously, like just a side note, my great aunt actually died in the second Intifada in a bus bombing. So it was just like, for me, a very personal, like, whoa, this is like crazy that someone on my campus wrote this and genuinely believes what they wrote. So yeah, through that experience, I obviously spoke up. That's kind of how my activism on campus started. I spoke up against this incident and I brought it to the university. I brought it to the student editing team, and they stood their ground. They tried to say that this is free speech. This is totally okay. It's completely like normal dialogue, which I completely disagreed with. And yeah, they really pushed back on it for a really long time, and it just got more traumatic, with myself and many other students having to go to meetings in person with the student editor at like a student representative council, which is like the students that are actually voted in, like student government in the United States, like a student body that's voted in by the students to represent us to the university administration. And though that student government actually laughed in our faces in the meeting while we were telling them that this sort of incident makes us as Jewish students feel unsafe on campus. And we completely were traumatized. That completely, I would say, shattered like any illusion that Jewish students could feel safe on campus. And yeah, that was sort of the beginning of my university journey, which was not great.
Wow, and that was in 2022, before October 7th. So after the terror attacks was when most college campuses, here in America at least, really erupted. Had the climate at the University of Adelaide improved by then, or did your experience continue to spiral downward until it was addressed?
It's kind of remained stagnant, I would say. Like the levels haven't really improved or gotten worse. I would say the only exception was maybe in like May 2024 when the encampments started popping up across the world. You know, obviously it came to my city as well, and it wasn't very great. Yeah, there was quite a large presence on my campus in the encampment. They were more peaceful than I would say other encampments across Australia and obviously in the United States as well. But it was definitely not pleasant for students to, you know, be on campus and constantly see that in their faces and protesting. They would often come into people's classrooms as well, you know, sharing everything that they would like to say. It was just like you couldn't really escape it when you were on campus.
So how did you find refuge? Was there a community center or safe space on campus? Were there people that took you in?
So I'm the president of the Jewish Student Society on my campus. One of the things that I really pushed for when the encampments came to my city was to have a Jewish space on campus. It was something that my university never had. And thankfully, we were able to push, and they were like, yes, you know what? this is the right time. We definitely agree. So we actually now have our own like big Jewish room on campus. And we still have it to this day, which is amazing. So it's great to go to when whether we feel uncomfortable on campus or whether we just want a place, to feel proud in our Jewish identity. And there's often events in the room. There's like a beers and bagels, or we can have beer here at 18, so it's okay for us. And there's also bagels. Then we also do Shabbat dinners. Obviously, there's still other stuff happening on campus that's not as nice, but it's great that we now have a place to go when we feel like we need a place to be, proud Jews.
You mentioned that this was the start of your Jewish activism. So can you tell us a little bit about your Jewish upbringing and really how your college experience has shifted your Jewish involvement, just activity in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually grew up in Adelaide. This is my home. I was originally born in Israel to an Israeli mother, but I was 2 years old when we moved to Adelaide. There was a Jewish school when I grew up. So I did attend the Jewish school until grade 5. And then unfortunately it did close due to low numbers. And so I had to move to the public school system. And from that point, I was very involved in the Jewish community through my youth. And then there was a point once the Jewish school closed down where I kind of maybe slightly fell out. I was obviously still involved, but not to the same extent as I was when I was younger. And then I would say the first place I got kind of reintroduced was once I went to college and obviously met other Jewish students. And then it made me want to get back involved in the community to a more higher level than I had been since primary school. And yeah, then obviously these incidents happened on campus, and that kind of, I guess, it shoved me into the spotlight unintentionally, where I felt like no one else was saying anything. I started just speaking up against this, and then obviously I think many other Jews on campus saw this and were like, hang on, we want to also support this and like speak out against it. And we kind of formed a bit of a group on campus, and that's how the club actually was formed as well. So the club didn't exist prior to this incident. It kind of came out of it. I guess the beautiful thing, but also kind of a sad thing, that we only seem to find each other in incidences of, sadness and trauma. But the beautiful thing is that from that, we have been able to create a really nice small community on campus for Jewish students. So yeah, that's sort of how my journey started. And then through that, I got involved with the Australasian Union of Jewish Students, which is the Jewish student union that represents Jewish students all across Australia and New Zealand. And I started the South Australian branch, which is the state that Adelaide is in. And I've been the president for the last 3 years. So that's sort of been my journey. And obviously through that, I've gotten involved with the American Jewish Committee.
So you're not just fighting anti-Semitism. These communities and groups that you're forming are doing some really beautiful things.
Obviously, I really want to ensure that Jewish student life can continue to thrive in my city, but also across Australia. And one way that we've really wanted to do that is to help create essentially a national Shabbaton, an event where Jewish students from all across the country come to one place for a weekend, and we're all together having a Shabbat dinner together, learning different educational programs, hearing from different amazing speakers, and just being with each other in our Jewish identity, very proud and united. It's one of, I think, my most proud accomplishments so far through my college journey, that I've been able to, create this event and make it happen.
And is there anything that you would like to accomplish Jewishly before you finish your college career?
There's a couple things. The big thing for me is ensuring I want there to continue to be a place on campus for people to go and feel proud in their Jewish identity. I think having a Jewish space is really important, and it's something that I didn't have when I started my college journey. So I'm very glad that that's in place for future generations. For most of my college journey so far, we didn't have even a definition at my university for anti-Semitism. So if you don't have a definition, how are you going to be able to define what is and what isn't anti-Semitic and actually combat it? So now, thankfully, they do have a definition. I don't know exactly if it's been fully implemented yet, but I know that they have agreed to a definition, and it's a mix of IRA and the Jerusalem Declaration, I believe. So it's like kind of a mix, but I think as a community, we're reasonably happy with it because now they actually have something to use rather than not having anything at all. And yeah, I think those are probably the two main things for me. Obviously, ensuring that there's processes at the university moving forward for Jewish students to feel safe to report when there are incidents on campus, and then ensuring that there's a place for Jewish students to continue to feel proud in their Jewish identity and continue to share that and live that while they are studying at the university.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy your holiday.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Now we turn to Argentina, Buenos Aires to be exact, to talk to Yvonne Stern, the first Argentine and first Latin American to serve on AJC's Campus Global Board. A student at La Universidad Nacional de San Martín, Yvonne just returned to classes last week after a brief winter break down there in the Southern Hemisphere. So tell me, what is Jewish life like there on that campus? Are there organizations for Jewish students?
I like to compare Jewish life in Buenos Aires like Jewish life in New York or in Paris or in Madrid. We are a huge city with a huge Jewish community where you can feel the Jewish sense, the Jewish values, the synagogues everywhere in the street. When regarding to college campuses, we do not have Jewish institutions or Jewish clubs or Jewish anything in our campuses that advocate for Jewish life or for Jewish students. We don't actually need them because the Jewish community is well established and respected in Argentina. Since our terrorist attacks of the 90s, we are more respected and we have a strong weight in all the decisions. So there's no specific institution that works for Jewish life on campus until October 7th. That we are now part of a system that it's created and it exists in other parts of the world, but now we are start to strengthening their programming and activities in Argentina. We now have the Argentinian Union of Jewish Students that was born in October 7th, and now we represent over 150 Jewish students in more than 10 universities. We are growing, but we are doing Shabbatot in different campuses for Jewish students. We are bringing Holocaust survivors to universities to speak with administrations and with student cabinets that are not Jewish, and to learn and to build bridges, of course, after October 7th. We are trying to make this grow, to try to connect every student with other students in other universities and within the same university. And we are work in progress.
Our listeners just heard from your Campus Global Board colleague, Jonathan Iadarola from Adelaide, Australia, and he spoke about securing the first space for Jewish students on campus there. Does that exist at your university? Do you have a safe space?
So Hillel exists in Buenos Aires and in Cordoba, which Cordoba is another province of Argentina. It's a really old, nice house in the middle of a really nice neighborhood in Buenos Aires. Also in Argentina, another thing that it's not like in the US, we don't live on campuses. So we come and go every day from our houses to the classes. And the Argentinian Union, our job is to represent politically to the Jewish youth on campus, to make these bridges of cooperation with non-Jewish actors of different college campuses and institutions. As I mentioned before, we bring Holocaust survivors, we place banners, we organize rallies, we go to talk with administrators, we erase pro-Palestinian paint on the wall. We do that kind of stuff, building bridges, not also representing or making programs for Jewish youth. We also do it, but it's not our main goal.
So really, it's an advocacy organization.
It's an advocacy organization, and we are really, really, really happy to work alongside with the HAC more than once to strengthen our goals.
October 7th was painful for all of us. What happened on university campuses there in Argentina that prompted the need for a union?
So the impact of October 7th in Argentina wasn't nearly as strong as in other parts of the world, and definitely nothing like what's been happening on US campuses. Maybe that's because October here is final season and our students were more focused on passing their classes than reacting to what was happening on the Middle East. But there were attempts of encampments, rallies, class disruptions, and intimidations, just like in other places. That's why we focused on speaking up, taking action. So here it's not happening what's happening in the US, which was really scary, and it's still really scary. But something was happening, and we needed to react. There wasn't a Jewish institution advocating for Jewish youth on campus directly, getting to know what Jewish students were facing. So that's why we organized this student-led, gathering different students from different universities. We need to do something. At the beginning, this institution was just on Instagram. It was named the institutions and then for Israel, like my university acronym, it's UNSAM, Universidad Nacional de San Martín, UNSAM. So it was UNSAM for Israel. So we posted like every campaign we were doing in our campuses. And then the same thing happened in other university and in other universities. So now we gathered everyone, and now we are the Argentinian Union of Jewish Students. But on top of that, in November 2023, students went on summer break until March 2024. So while the topic was extremely heated elsewhere, here the focus had shifted on other things. The new national government was taking office, which had everyone talking more about their policies than about Israel. So now the issue is starting to resurface because of the latest news from Gaza. So we will go where it goes from here. But the weight of the community here, it's really strong. So we have the ability to speak up.
What kinds of conversations have you had with university administrators directly after October 7th and then now?
It's a tricky one because it depends on the university, the answer we receive, of course. In my university, we are lots of Jews in our eyes, but we are a strong minority also. But we have some Jewish directors in the administration. So sometimes they are really focused on our concerns. There's a great work that Argentina has been doing since 2020 to apply the IRA definition in every public institution. So, for example, my university, it's part of the IRA definition. So that's why it was easy for us to apply sanctions to student cabinets or student organizations that were repeating anti-Semitic rhetorics, distortioning the Holocaust messages and everything. Then with the private institutions, we really have a good relationship. They have partnerships with different institutions from Israel, so it's easy for us to stop political demonstrations against the Jewish people. We are not against political demonstrations supporting the Palestinian statehood or anything, but when it regards to the safety of Jewish life on campus or of Jewish students, we do make phone calls. We do call to other Jewish institutions to have our back. And yes, we have difficult answers, but the important thing is that we have them. They do not ghost us, which is something we appreciate. Because sometimes ghosting is worse. Sometimes it's better for us to know that the institution will not care about us, than not knowing what's their perspective towards the problem.
Yvonne, I'm wondering what you're thinking of as you're telling me this. Is there a specific incident that stands out in your mind as something the university administrators declined to address?
So in December 2023, when we were all in summer break, we went back to my college to place the hostages signs on the walls of every classroom. Because at the same time, the student-led organizations that were far-left student-led organizations were placing these kind of signs and drawings on the walls with rockets with the Magen David and like demonizing Jews. So we went to the school administrators and we called them like, hey, the rocket with the Magen David, it's not okay because the Magen David is a Jewish symbol. This is a thing happening in the Middle East between a state and another. Like you have to preserve the Jewish students, whatever. And they told us like, this is not an anti-Semitic thing for us, regardless the IRA definition. And then they did do something and paint them back to white as the color of the wall. But they told us like, if you want to place the hostages signs on top of them or elsewhere in the university, you can do it. So if they try to bring them down, yeah, we will do something. Because this is like free speech, that they can do whatever they want and you can do whatever you want. So that's the answers we receive. So sometimes they are positive, sometimes they are negative, sometimes in between. But I think that the important thing is that the youth is united, and as students, we are trying to push forward and to advocate for ourselves to do something.
Is there anything that you want to accomplish either this year or before you leave campus?
Keep building on the work of the Argentinian Union of Jewish Students is doing, bringing Jewish college students together, representing them, pushing our limits, expanding across the country. As I said, we have a strong operations in Buenos Aires as the majority of the communities here, but we also know that there's other Jewish students in other provinces of Argentina. We have 24 provinces, so we are just working in one. And it's also harder for Jewish students to live Jewishly on campus in other provinces when there are less students. Then the problems are bigger because you feel more alone because you don't know other students, Jews or non-Jews. So that's one of my main goals, expanding across the country and while teaming up with non-Jewish partners.
You had said earlier that the students in the union were all buzzing about AJC's recent ad in the New York Times calling for a release of the hostages still in Gaza. Are you hoping your seat on AJC's Campus Global Board will help you expand that reach?
My grandma is really happy about the AJC donation to the Gaza Church. She sent me a message. If you have access to the AJC, please say thank you about the donation. And then lots of Jewish students in our union group chat, the 150 Jewish students freaking out about the AJC ad in the New York Times newspaper about the hostages.
In other words, they like knowing that there's a global advocacy organization out there on their side.
Also advocating for youth directly. So sometimes it's hard for us to connect with other worldwide organizations. As I said, we are in Argentina, in the bottom of the world. HAC is worldwide. We are so well established that sometimes we lack of international representation here because everything is solved internally. So if you have anything to say, you will call to the AMIA or to the DAIA, which are the central organizations. And that's it. And you are good. And they may have connections or relationships with the HAC or with other organizations. But now students can have direct representation with organizations like HAC, which are advocating directly for us. So we appreciate it.
You said things never got as heated and uncomfortable in Argentina as they did on American college campuses last year. What encouragement would you like to offer to your American peers?
I was 2 weeks ago in New York in a seminar with other Jewish students from all over the world, and I mentioned that our duty as Jewish youth is paving the way for ourselves. Sometimes we may feel alone, sometimes we are not, but the most important thing is for us as youth to pave the way for ourselves, to take action, to speak out, even if it's hard or difficult. It doesn't matter how little it is, but to do something, to start reconnecting with other Jews, no matter their religious spectrum, to start building bridges with other youth. Our strongest aspect is that we are youth, not only because we are Jewish, but we are youth. So it's easier for us to communicate with other peers. So sometimes when it looks like hate or everything is shady and we cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, we should remember that the other one shouting against us is also a peer.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Really appreciate your time. And good luck going back for your spring semester.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity.
Now we return home. Campus Global Board member Lauren Eckstein grew up outside Phoenix and initially pursued studies at Pomona College in Southern California. But during the spring semester, after the October 7th Hamas terror attacks, she transferred to Washington University in St. Louis. She returned to California this summer as one of AJC's Goldman Fellows. So, Lauren, you are headed back to Washington University this fall. Tell us what your experience there has been so far as a college student.
So I've been there since January of 2024. It has a thriving Jewish community of Hillel and Chabad that constantly is just like the center of Jewish life. And I have great Jewish friends, great supportive non-Jewish friends, like administration that is always talking with us and making sure that we feel safe and comfortable. So I'm very much looking forward to being back on campus.
As I already shared with our audience, you transferred from Pomona College. Did that have anything to do with the response on campus after October 7th?
I was a bit alienated already for having spent a summer in Israel in between my freshman and sophomore year. So that would have been the summer of 2023 before October 7th, like a few months before. And I already lost some friends due to spending that summer in Israel before anything had happened and experienced some anti Semitism before October 7th, with a student calling a pro-Israel group that I was a part of bloodthirsty baby killers for having a barbecue in celebration of Israeli independence. But after October 7th is when it truly became unbearable. I lost hundreds of followers on Instagram. The majority of people I was friends with started giving me dirty looks on campus. I was a history and politics double major at the time, so the entire history department signed a letter in support of the war. I lost any sense of emotional safety on campus. And so 20 days after October 7th, with constant protests happening outside of my dorm, I could hear it from my dorm, students going into dining halls, getting them to sign petitions against Israel, even though Israel had not been in Gaza at all. At this point, this was all before the invasion happened. I decided to go home for a week for my mental well-being and ended up deciding to spend the rest of that semester at home.
And what did your other Jewish classmates do at Pomona? Did they stay? Did they transfer as well?
I would say the majority of Jewish students in Claremont either they don't really identify with their Jewish identity in any way, or most of them identify as anti-Zionist very proudly. And there were probably only a few dozen of us in total from all 5 colleges that would identify as Zionists or really say like, oh, I would love to go to Israel. One of my closest friends from Pomona transferred a semester after I did to WashU. A few other people I know transferred to other colleges as well. I think the choice for a lot of people were either I'm going to get through because I only have a year left or like a couple years left, or I'm going to go abroad, or I'm just going to face it. And I know that it's going to be really difficult and I'm only going to have a few friends and only have a few professors I can even take classes with, but I'm going to get through it.
So have you kept in touch with the friends at Pomona that cut you off, shot you dirty looks, or did those friendships just come to an end?
They all came to an end. I can count on under one hand, the number of people that I talked to from any of the Claremont colleges. I'm lucky to have one like really, really close friend of mine who is not Jewish that stood by my side during all of this when she easily did not need to, and will definitely always be one of my closest friends. But I don't talk to the majority of people that I was friends with at Pomona.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that, but it sounds like the experience helped you recognize your truest friend. With only 1 year left at WashU, I am sure plenty of people are asking you what you plan to do after you graduate, but I want to know what you are hoping to do in the time you have left on campus.
I really just want to take it all in. I feel like I haven't had a very normal college experience. I mean, most people don't transfer in general, but I think my 2 college experiences have been so different from each other, not even just in terms of anti-Semitism or Jewish population, but even just in terms of like the kind of school it is, like the size of it and all of that. I have made such amazing friends at WashU, Jewish and not, that I just really want to spend as much time with them as I can, and definitely spend as much time with the Jewish community and staff at Hillel and Chabad that I can. I'm minoring in Jewish Islamic Middle Eastern Studies. And so I'm really looking forward to taking classes in that subject, just that opportunity that I didn't have at Pomona. I really just want to go into it with an open mind and really just enjoy it as much as I can, because I haven't been able to enjoy like much of my college experience. So really appreciate the good that I have.
As I mentioned before, like Jonathan and Yvonne, you are on AJC's Campus Global Board, but you also served as an AJC Goldman Fellow in the Los Angeles Regional Office this summer, which often involves working on a particular project. Did you indeed work on something specific?
I mainly worked on a toolkit for parents of kids aged K through 8 to address Jewish identity and anti-Semitism. And so really what this is trying to do is both educate parents, but also provide activities and tools for their kids to be able to really foster that strong Jewish identity, because sadly, anti-Semitism is happening to kids at much younger ages than what I dealt with or what other people dealt with. And really, I think bringing in this positive aspect of Judaism, along with providing kids the tools to be able to say, what I'm seeing on this social media platform is anti-Semitic, and this is why it's going to make the next generation of Jews even stronger.
Did you experience any anti-Semitism or any challenges growing up in Arizona?
I went to a non-religious private high school, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism happening at that time. And so there was a trend to post a blue square on like your Instagram. And so I did that. And one girl in my grade, it was a small school of around 70 kids per grade, she called me a Zionist bitch for posting the square. It had nothing to do with Israel or anything political. It was just a square in solidarity with Jews that were being killed in the United States for being Jewish. And so I went to the school about it, and they basically just said, this is free speech. There's nothing we can do about it. And pretty much everyone in my grade at school sided with her over it. I didn't really start wearing a star until high school, but I never had a second thought about it. Like, I never thought, oh, I will be unsafe if I wear this here.
Jonathan and Yvonne shared how they started Jewish organizations for college students that hadn't existed before. As someone who has benefited from Hillel and Chabad and other support networks here in America, what advice would you offer your peers in Argentina and Australia?
So it's so hard for me to say what the experience is like as an Argentinian Jew or as an Australian Jew, but I think community is something that Jews everywhere need. I think it's through community that we keep succeeding generation after generation, time after time. When people try to discriminate against us and kill us, I believe it's when we come together as a people that we can truly thrive and feel safe. And I would say in different places, how Jewish you want to outwardly be is different. But I think on the inside, we all need to be proud to be Jewish. And I think we all need to connect with each other more. And that's why I'm really excited to be working with students from all over the world on the Campus Global Board, because I feel like us as Americans, we don't talk to Jews from other countries as much as we should be. I think that we are one people. We always have been and always will be. And we really need to fall back on that.
Well, that's a lovely note to end on. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
If you missed last week's episode, be sure to tune in for my conversation with Adam Lewis Klein, a PhD candidate at McGill University. Adam shared his unexpected journey from researching the Desano tribe in the Amazon to confronting rising anti-Semitism in academic circles after October 7th. He also discussed his academic work, which explores the parallels between indigenous identity and Jewish peoplehood and unpacks the politics of historical narrative. Next week, People of the Pod will be taking a short break while the AJC podcast team puts the finishing touches on a new series set to launch August 28th, Architects of Peace, the Abraham Accords story. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening. This episode is brought to you by AJC. Our producer is Atara Lakritz. Our sound engineer is TK Broderick. You can subscribe to People of the Pod on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or learn more at ajc.org/peopleofthepod. The views and opinions of our guests don't necessarily reflect the positions of AJC. We'd love to hear your views and opinions or your questions. You can reach us at peopleofthepod@ajc.org. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to tell your friends, tag us on social media with #PeopleOfThePod, and hop on to Apple Podcasts to rate us and write a review to help more listeners find us. Tune in next week for another episode of People of the Pod.